Okay, just a quick one today. There's not actually a coding assignment that goes along with this because it would be a nightmare. But told you last time that with scraping data from websites, it goes from really easy to mind-bogglingly difficult in a pretty short period of time. So what I'm going to walk through today is how it works when it is really hard and just sort of show you what's possible with a little bit of programming knowledge and a little bit of help. I will show you in the screencast how to scrape players, and in the book it talks about the team stats that we've been working with all semester long, the log data that you've been using for tons and stuff. You'll actually see how I get that pretty regularly. So there is a quiz, there is an assignment, you need to fill that out, but there is no coding to go along with it, so it should go relatively quickly. So an example of how this scraping business with Rvest can go from pretty easy to pretty dang hard pretty fast is we look at this page here of the 2019-2020 college basketball season school stats. We've used this data before. I have scraped this out where you had every school and their stats for every one of them, and it's pretty useful. But what if we want something from each school? So if I go here to Abilene Christian's page, I get their roster, I get their team and opponent stats, I get their players stats, their per game stats, their season totals, per 40 minutes, per 100 possessions, their advanced metrics. There's a ton of stuff here, even conference and conference splits. There's just a mind-boggling amount of data here. Well, if I want player data, if I want individual players' data, then I've got to go to 353 pages to get this, and that's not fun. Imagine if your project was to look at every college basketball player in the country and compare them to somebody, whoever you wanted to compare them to. If you did it the way that some people did it by going to this share and more and clicking on the get table as CSV, yeah, good luck. You're going to be doing this for a while. So advanced scraping here takes that into account and does what computers are good at, which is repeats things over and over and over again mindlessly. So I'm going to walk you through getting the player data here in this video. The chapter walks you through getting team stats, but I'm going to grab a handful of libraries here, most of which we've used before, some of which we haven't. So I'm grabbing the Tidyverse, I'm grabbing Rvest, Lubridate to fix some dates, and Janitor to fix some headers. So I'll go ahead and run that real quick. The URL I was just looking at was this one here that gives me my school stats. So I'll go ahead and create that. Then what I'm going to do is I want to create a data frame called schools. I'm going to give it that URL, which is there. I'm going to read the HTML. I'm going to find the table that has the basic school stats in it. But then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the links and just the web address, the href that I need for each one of them. So when I'm done with schools, schools will be a list of 353 items long, and you'll see it's the relative URLs of each school. So now what I can do is I can create a thing called a URI, which is just the root URL, and then I can attach this URL to the rest of it, and that gives me the full complete URL to it. So I'm going to create a table called everything, and then I'm going to loop through it. This for I in schools. I is the iterator. That means that's the thing that we're going to do over and over and over and over again. So I is the thing. I is the schools. Schools here is the list of schools. So you can read this. For each individual school in my list of schools, we're going to do all of the stuff in this curly brace. So everything inside of here gets done over and over and over again. The first thing it gets done is we're going to create a school URL, which is the combination of the URI and the iterator, which again is this over here, so it's the relative URL path. We mash those things together without a space in between them, and it's going to create something called a school URL. It's going to read a page in, going to that school URL. So here's the page. I'm only going to do that once. I don't want to do this over and over and over again for everything that I need. So the first thing I'm grabbing is the team name, which is in a different spot. If we go back to the page, we go back to our page here, and we go to Abilene Christian's page again. Here's the place where the Abilene Christian Wildcats appears in the page. If I look down here in my roster, nowhere does Abilene Christian appear anywhere in this. So I've got to grab that separately. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm creating a thing called team, and it is going to give me just the name of the team, which I'm just grabbing the HTML text. That's all I need. The roster, I'm going to get the table from where the roster is. The first thing I'm doing is I've got to get rid of something. So I'm using that trick that we've done before where I take the list that's roster, I get the first element of roster, which is the data frame, and then this mutate just takes out this thing and just dumps it. There's some players that are in this RSCI top 100, but not all of them, and it throws everything off. I had to learn this the hard way. Okay. So this is going to look a little different than some of the other stuff because of something that that Sports Reference does with certain things. What they do is they actually comment out the data. So if I want to grab the, let's just say the advanced metrics here. If I go here and I inspect it, one thing that you may not notice, let me expand this so you can see it a little bit better, is that you see how everything is gray here? It's because this is what's called commented out. This piece of HTML right here comments that out. What it means is it shouldn't render. The browser should just say, yep, I'm not going to worry about that one. I don't need it. It's a comment. It's not an actual piece of code, so I'm not going to use it. And then what happens is Sports Reference uses a piece of JavaScript to then re-render it for your browser. They're doing this to try to stop people like us from scraping this stuff very easily, and it just creates a little bit of work. So back over here to the code, what you see is I'm grabbing all of the comment nodes, which is just sort of strange. So give me all of the HTML comments. I'm going to extract it as text. I'm going to collapse it, and then I'm going to read that collapsed string as HTML, which then reparses it as HTML. Now I'm going to look for the total stats table. I'm going to make that a table, and then I'm going to use this from janitor, which just removes the empty columns. It's just a quick way to kind of do that. I do it again for the advanced metrics. Same comments, same collapsing, same reading as HTML. I remove the empty columns. Now I'm going to join all of this stuff together. So I'm going to join roster to the totals using my player as my join. Then I'm going to join the advanced metrics using player, the number of games played, the number of games started, and minutes played. The reason I'm doing that is so that these columns don't repeat across all of them. From basic stats to advanced stats, this is going to be the same anyway, so it's not a big deal. I'm going to then make the team into this team up here that I grabbed. I'm creating a new column called team, and I'm just making it equal to this value here. And then I am selecting first the team name and then everything after that. This is a function that just says give me everything after that. And that way I don't have to specify which of these things is in order. Otherwise my team would be the last thing, and I don't want that. So then what I'm doing is I'm taking this players and I'm binding it to everything, which was this up here. Everything is the empty table that I created. So I'm binding all of the players to everything. And then this sys.sleep says, I'm just going to make it sleep for 3 seconds. The reason that we do that is so that our scraper doesn't send an overwhelming number of requests to their servers. And the reason we don't want to do that is because if you overwhelm a server with a bunch of requests for pages, it's called a denial of service attack. And that's a federal crime, and it's punishable by time in federal prison. And I love you all, but I don't want any one of you to have to serve time in federal prison for grabbing basketball stats. So this tells the program, hey, don't just do this as fast as possible. Take a little 3-second pause here every time you're going to go through this. And then once you're done with that 3-second pause, go back and do it again and again and again. And pretty much any server on the planet can handle a request every 3 seconds, and it's not a big deal. So very last thing, writes it out. The thing about this is if it's going through 353 teams and grabbing all this stuff, it has got to take 3-second pause in between it. It means it's going to take a long time. So I'm just going to go ahead and start it up here. And no, I'm not going to make you wait and watch it. Just trust me that it works. And yep, that's just really giving you an idea of what's possible with a bit of programming, a bit of logic, a bit of thinking through what your problem is and what you've got going on, and you'll get it eventually. So that's it.